This article about Bashir Badr is not merely an article, it's a spoken prose of the 21st century and future generation to come, the purpose of which is to intimate them of the poetic feeling traveling immortal in the human hearts as spoken air, spoken fragrance, spoken moon, spoken sunshine, spoken love, and spoken sounds in poetry. His narration about the literature's gesture is written in the most simple language to make mirror image in reader's shadow. To understand what this article stands for and his destination motion in the last stop of our soul. We appreciate heart-to-heart talk to acknowledge your smile in the heart. You will be glorified, the notion for one's essence and substance in the journey of life. One can see the air, one can read the fragrance, and one can light the moon in his heart. One can burn the burning desire in love and affection. That's his writing in spoken couplets. His one sheer is enough to speak the universal sound of poetry. उजाले अपने यादों के हमारे साथ रहने दो, ना जाने किस गली में जिंदगी की शाम हो जाए. His heart is kept in moon, his soul is in air, flowing in the nature's fragrance, and with this he is present everywhere with his beloved poetry. It seems wearing clouds' clothes with moon's heart, with soul air, and with fragrant mind he came in this world as human being. His blood is so bland in his veins, he carries colorful poetries of life, love, and lives. He is breathing with spoken poems. His moon heart and nature's soul is flowing in air, whose thought is influencing the human hearts. His name is written in water, and his work is surviving, live in feelings, to name remarks of full moon poetry. After Ghalib's fame now, Bashir Badr, one of the honorable and most popular romantic poet in the 21st century, is drawing crowds mad in his mushaira to the unforgettable couplets than any form of poetic expression. While reading and listening to his two lines couplets, one can feel his poetry in much beautiful, admiring adoration. Ultimately, anyone can defy the immeasurable verses of long poems in literature. The concentration and thoughts make each of his words more and more alive in touch of love. He is the secret notion of man living and shining in human hearts. His subconscious poet flows in poetry with soft and purified perfection from nature's words. All queries of life are answered in his lovable cure. Beauty and richness of his sheer, intimate, trustworthy popularity and significance. We can't change the state of mind with his expression of life. Bashir Badr himself is poetry, and when poetry writes poetry, its legacy is difficult to quantify. He is like first and last shayar in real primitive ghazals, second to none, not as such imitable, its last stop in soul destination, like been written in nature. As everlasting pervading poetry, he is one and only one shayar-e-azam in the history of Urdu poetry. His reputation as shair is incomparable with the contemporary poets. He is legendary by the people known as greatest modern poets in history of ghazal ever happened. The fascination of his poetry created an even greater influence as very unique and real psychology of human being. That's the monarchy he made in modern ghazals. He is like first and last shair in real natural ghazals, but no so-called modern ghazals, because modern will be even modern as nature's delight, and he is delightful fragrance of nature in his ghazals. He walks on path of meer taki, meer traditions, and turned into most new modern gesture in Urdu poetry. First time Hindi became Urdu with extraordinary significant meanings and expressions. His work became the first interpretation in Hindi and Urdu, creating loving and clear vision in couplets. The contemporary tongue welcomed his style with innovation of fascination in traditional sounds of Urdu and Hindi. His glittering shurs are smiling his wealth and strength in ghazals. a love with loving ghazals. A poet has taken birth as literature, and a literature taken birth as a poet. How centuries old this human era is? It doesn't matter. Bashir Badr's glimpse in his poetic expression carries age of past, present, and future tongues of spoken language. This reflects the psychological truths in the ethnic Urdu ghazals and his present live ghazals. He's a mark of live age in all ages of period. A poet of ages in all ages, he's breathing age for conception love, and the life speaks of his love is his shares as a remarkable personality in Urdu attitude as poet. An aged, distinct poet. Love and poetry are synonymous to each other. Everlasting is afflatus in universe, so-called nature, and the name behind nature is God. Human, nature, and God are three literatures in poetry. From flowers to pain, all are the moods and diction in manifestation of poet. The name Bashir Badr is among one of the best poetries written by Almighty after Khusro, Kabir, Ghalib, Meer, and Faiz. Now, a new messenger in literature is Bashir Badr, shining as Damoon in universal form of Urdu literature as shayar-e-azam. It is impossible to see air, but it is possible to see air with Bashir Badr, 2 lines, couplet, and share. Compare human nature and God. Human is a nature, and nature is the God. And God became human, and human became God. It's a cycle in uniform of spirits between life and death. Bashir Badr's path to pinnacle touches the heart of moonlight poetry. His poetry exists as love of mirror. His share reveals his heart to the hearts with deep touch of love. A very clean, humble, poetic excellence. His reflection is a prism of sun, moon, stars, and sunshine of hearts, resembling flame in eyes, with notion on the tranquility of love, humanity, and spoken sounds of hearts. I say nobody ever narrated better what life, God, and nature is. He is a cycle of an era in literature's blood. A poet has taken birth as literature, and a literature taken birth as a poet. Both are synonymous to each other to define poetry of God as a poet. Would be written in future as Bashir Badr, the last stop in Saul's destination, as everlasting, pervading poetry.